All right, let's dive into what might be the ultimate question. What is consciousness? I mean, we all have this incredibly rich inner world, but where does it actually come from? Today, we're going to explore the competing ideas, trying to map out this unbelievable landscape. The philosopher Patricia Churchland really just cuts right to the chase, doesn't she? How on earth does this 3-pound lump of meat inside our skulls manage to create our entire universe of thoughts, feelings, and, well, experiences? This is the absolute core of the puzzle we're digging into. So to even get started, we need a key term, and that term is qualia. These are the raw, subjective qualities of any experience. It's the actual feeling of smelling garlic, the sense of awe you get seeing a newborn, the wash of emotion from a symphony. You see, scientists can map which neurons fire when you see the color red, but they can't experience your red. That subjective gap, that's what we're talking about with qualia. And this whole idea leads us straight to what the philosopher David Chalmers famously called the hard problem. Why isn't all our brain's processing just done in the dark? Why, as he puts it, do we even have this amazing, entertaining inner movie playing in our minds at all? It's this question that creates the fundamental split in how we even try to find an answer. That hard problem, it basically splits the entire field of study into two major camps. Just about every theory we're going to look at plants its flag firmly on one side of this great divide. So here's the divide. On one side, you've got materialism. This is the idea that consciousness is a purely biological process. The answer, somewhere, is in our neurobiology, period. But on the other side, you have non-physicalism. This is the argument that our inner movie is something more than just the brain's wiring, that it needs an explanation that goes beyond the physics we currently understand. Okay, so with our map laid out, let's start the journey. First stop is going to be the materialist camp, which is the territory that most neuroscientists would call home. In this camp, the hunt for consciousness is all about the physical brain. The idea here is that the ghost in the machine isn't really a ghost at all. It's just a very, very elegant function of the machine itself. So, for a materialist, consciousness is something that evolved, just like our nervous system did. The explanation, therefore, has to be found by studying neurons and how they process information. No mysterious forces or non-physical souls needed. A huge effort in this camp is the search for the neural correlates of consciousness, or NCCs. You can think of this as a scientific manhunt. They're trying to pinpoint the exact minimum brain activity that perfectly lines up with a specific experience. Like, if we can find the precise neurons that fire if and only if you're seeing the color red, well, we might be getting really close to cracking the code. Another major pillar of materialist thought is the computational approach. This basically treats the brain like a biological computer. From this perspective, consciousness isn't some special thing, but it's an emergent property of incredibly complex information processing, kind of like how life itself emerges from complex chemistry. But for a lot of thinkers, that's just not enough. They argue that a complex wiring diagram, no matter how detailed, never truly explains the feeling of being that brain. And this pushes us to cross the divide, to look at theories that are searching for a very different kind of answer. Okay, here's the pivot point. What if the answer isn't in the specific arrangement of our neurons at all? What if, to understand consciousness, we have to look way deeper into the very fabric of reality and the fundamental laws that govern the entire universe? This is where the theories start to get really interesting. Take panpsychism, for example. Now, this isn't the idea that rocks are sitting around thinking about philosophy. No. It's the pretty radical proposal that consciousness, in some really basic, rudimentary form, is a fundamental property of matter itself, just like mass or electrical charge. In this view, our brains don't create consciousness. They just amplify and organize a property that's already woven into the universe from the ground up. And then you have the quantum theories. Since classical, everyday physics really struggles to explain our inner world, some thinkers turn to the undeniable weirdness of the quantum realm. They propose that consciousness might not be something you can compute in a classical sense, but instead it bubbles up from quantum processes happening deep inside our neurons. For some, linking these two huge mysteries, consciousness and quantum physics, is the most promising way forward. All right, now we're heading to the very edges of the map. We're talking about ideas that don't just question our understanding of the mind, but our entire understanding of reality itself. These are some of the most profound and challenging perspectives out there. Idealism completely flips the script. Materialism says that the brain creates consciousness. Idealism says, hang on a second, what if consciousness is the fundamental stuff of the universe? In this view, the physical world, including our brains, is something that appears within consciousness, not the other way around. The universe, at its very core, is mental. It's also really important to remember that science and philosophy aren't the only ones who've tackled this question. For thousands of years, spiritual traditions have offered their own maps. Dualism, the idea of a non-physical soul that's separate from the body, is central to many religions. Other traditions, like Hinduism, propose a cosmic consciousness, this idea that our individual minds are just waves in one single universal ocean of awareness. So, after our tour across this absolutely incredible landscape, where does that leave us? Well, pretty much right in the middle of one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in all of science. I love this quote from the AI pioneer Marvin Minsky. He calls consciousness a suitcase term. He suggests that we just pack all sorts of different mental processes, memory, awareness, attention, you name it, into this one word, and then we think we've identified a single magical thing. Maybe the real trick is to unpack that suitcase and try to understand each part on its own. Ultimately, there's no consensus here. This map is still being drawn, and there are fierce debates happening over every single landmark. It is a profound, ongoing quest that is pushing the very limits of what we know. So that leaves us with a final thought. As you experience your own inner movie today, just ask yourself this. Is this all just a magnificent trick of your brain? Or is it a glimpse into the fundamental nature of reality itself? The search for that answer really is one of humanity's greatest adventures. Thanks for joining me.